Our low humidity and warm weather pattern continues. We've got a few storms running around in the Mississippi River Valley and back into the Central Plains. Weather in the southeast has been mostly nice. Some showers over the, let's call it the central mid-Atlantic and parts of North Carolina. And of course, we have Tropical Storm Ernesto. So we will be talking about that and much more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use the coupon code.
Summer 20, excuse me, summer 2024 caught me in the middle of a cough. I'm
Oh
sorry.
well, that's quite all right. Hold your phlegm. And the and if you use that coupon code, you will get,
You won't get phlegm, but you will get 10% off.
yes, exactly. All right, good evening to everybody on the chat board, and those of you who are just watching in the background, enjoying tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We are happy you are here. Just a reminder to make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. Kind of doing different schedules this week because I have some things going on. We're probably going to have a time shift on Thursday, so we'll let everybody know tomorrow about that. Otherwise, most weeks we're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35, and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around. And of course, if you like the show, by all means, hit the like button because after all, we like it when you hit the like button. So, Mr. Rayo,
Yes, sir.
I, I thought maybe we would start off because I have to. I'm going to be very honest about this. Not that I'm never honest. Of course, I'm honest, but I'm going to be extra honest tonight and open about my feelings. Um, the you could have. I was utterly shocked when I saw that. Uh, when I saw the story yesterday that um, News Radio 88 WCBS New York was going bye bye, and it hit. Now we were both there for the demise of FiOS. You had to, whatever what happened with News 12 when they shut down News 12 Westchester, and you were there personally, so I'm sure that was really difficult. Um, I kind of rolled with stuff that's happened to me over the years, but I have to tell you, I was very emotional today, reading some things, and also. Um, uh, I went to Don Swain's website, and he has the compilations of all the sounds and the music and the jingles and all the rest of it. And I have to tell you, it really, really made me very sad. It brought me to tears a couple of times, just thinking about it.
It very similar feelings here. I've the news came yesterday morning, but I guess it took about a good 24 hours for it to really sink in. Because early today, I was thinking about the station itself, and I know you grew up with it just like I did, with Gordon Barnes back in the '60s, and then later Bob Harris, who transitioned to for a short time to Norm Macdonald, and then Craig Allen, our good friend, took over in 1981, and he has been there ever since. I sometimes used to kid Craig. I said, you realize you're the Cal Ripken of radio meteorologist. He had a 43-year run at that station, and I told him on his Facebook page yesterday, I doubt very much if anybody's ever going to approach that. Well, they never will, because radio today is so much different than it was when you and I were starting in the business back in the '70s. Back then, we called it personality radio. Now, radio is only good for one thing: throw on a couple of hit tunes and then run with a whole bunch of commercials, and then go back to music.
Yeah, well, over the course of years, whether it's our generation or the one that follows us or the one that follows that one, you go through these changes and things are they're born, they're created, they have a life of their own for a while, and then they die off. But I would never would have guessed in a million years that the News Radio 88 would be history.
Well,
And
as Tessio said in The Godfather, I always liked you, Mike, but it was business.
Business. Well, and I understand that. I understand that. But I was really surprised also by how many people uh, commented about, you know, they would listen to it in their car, traffic and weather on the eights.
Right.
Um, you and I go back a whole lot further. Actually, you and I both remember when um, when they started. Was it there was a plane crash at the tower out in Long Island Sound, and
Right.
they when they got that going again, they just revamped the format and it became News Radio 88. And of course, we laugh and we make fun over certain things like, for example, this is Neil Chiat looking at the law. Remember?
Yep. This is Neil Chayat looking at
Looking
the
at the
law.
law. And and then there was Anthony Dias Blue who did all the cooking stuff and that sort of thing. I know how do you do cooking on radio, but he managed to pull it off. Well, he would talk about all sorts of culinary things and wine and so on. I mean, I remember I go back far enough when they were first on the air that during part of the day they used to run the Arthur Godfrey show.
Right.
You know,
Arthur Godfrey, who had dated back with the CBS network to the 1940s, was with CBS News Radio 88 even after the show, after the station went, quote, all news. They really were not all news. They had two programs that broke with the all news format. One was at night, and my grandmother loved this show. It was called Music Till Dawn, from midnight to 5:30 a.m. They would play Montevani type or instrumental type music, and it was sponsored by American Airlines. So that was on from midnight to 5:30, and then Arthur Godfrey, who was kind of like the Howard Stern of the 19th, not in the sense that he was like
he wasn't a shock jock.
he was not a shock jock, but whereas we referred to Howard Stern, at least some years ago, as the king of all media, Arthur Godfrey truly was the king of all media in the 1940s and 50s because he was all over the place on radio and he had like 4 or 5 shows on television. And he finally, CBS said in 1972, 5 years after they did the news radio format, they said, Arthur, that's it. We no more. And they sent him packing. So I remember those shows, Joe. I remember that, and again Neil Chayet and Anthony Dias Blue and so many other programs.
Irene Cornell was the world's greatest court reporter. You could listen to her and you would think you were in the courtroom.
Yes,
And she did all the big trials. And her reporting was so, I mean, it was sheer perfection. Because I could just you would get a feel for her, from her reporting. You might as well have been in the court. She was that good.
and I worked with her husband. Her husband was Dan Meenan, who was probably one of the best street reporters on radio, and he worked over at WMCA, and he had this kind of a voice, and he always used to do his reports like this, and then he would throw it back to the newsroom, and Bert Knapp was the news director, and whenever he finished his story, he said, "And that's how it is down here at City Hall." Wait. So, and he was married to Irene Cornell at CBS. So and in fact, Dan Meenan's son lives in Australia and is a friend of my sister Lisa on Facebook. So it's kind of crazy. It's like 6 degrees of recognition or whatever. But CBS, it just blows my mind that CBS is going to be no more, and they're retiring the call letters too. The call
Yes.
letters will be no more on at least on the AM. They still have the FM, CBS FM 101, but on the AM it goes bye bye as of August the
Yeah,
27th.
it becomes WHSQ. I don't know where they came up with that one. But you know what? Over the years, I mean, WABC, which was known as the big pop music station, um, became talk radio, and then WNBC disappeared and became WFAN, And all these places are whatever the ones that are still around are really just mere shadows of their former selves anyhow. So, but I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that this was a really important piece of media history that has occurred. 58 years on the air, and also it's symbolic of what is happening and what's been happening now for a while, and it's going to continue to happen as legacy media, um, the traditional old networks like CBS, ABC, NBC, just continue to circle the drain as the way we watch media, the way we consume media, is has just you know changed, and it's going to keep changing. So one day something's going to come along to replace us. Um, I doubt that they'll be as handsome and as good enough as you and I are here on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. But uh, to all those people that work at WCBS or have worked, at some point, I mean, you were a part of history. So be proud. Certainly, I'm sure you're proud of that, and we're all proud of it.
Stan the Man on the chat board says, did the FCC force this ruling? And no. What happened was that CBS and the other news talk station, not news talk, news radio station in New York, 1010 Wins, were bitter rivals for many, many years. 1010 Wins came along and became all news in 1965. CBS changed to all news format in 67. And for years thereafter, they were head to head with each other. But in fact, CBS was Columbia Broadcasting, and 1010 Wins was Westinghouse Broadcasting. And as I said, they went at each other tooth and nails in gathering up information and gathering up news. But then, I don't remember exactly when this happened, but about 5, 10, or 15 years ago, a company by the name of Odyssey, which also happens to own uh, FAN, the WFAN sports radio, all talk
Right.
radio station,
Well,
they
there was another owner after that when CBS sold off their radio division. Was it to Clear Channel, Clear Channel Communications,
yeah,
and then suddenly CBS and Winds wound up being owned by the same company because Westinghouse, which was, um, a, they were a broadcast media company, but they were also a big electric generation, industrial company.
right.
When they got taken over, I forgot who took them over. The media division was sold out to somebody, and then the radio CBS got rid of their radio stations, and that included WCBS, and somehow Winds and CBS got owned by the same company, and they're owned by Odyssey, and Odyssey, is not, they're leaving Winds alone, but which of course you have to be happy about the fact that the man who holds the typewriter on his shoulder and goes like this to make to simulate the teletype sound is not going to be out of a job. But yeah, it's crazy. It's just how it is.
And as I said,
And
as Tessio said, it was all business. What they must have done over at Odyssey, they must have had like several meetings and said, okay, we now own two all news radio stations in New York. One, is it really necessary to have two? And obviously, all the hands went up and said, no, we really should only have one. Okay, which one? And of the two, the one that was chosen was 1010 Wins, partially because they've always had larger ratings than CBS. But CBS was kind of a broader, it took into account not just New York City, but Long Island and the
right,
suburban.
they CBS did WCBS did the suburbs, much more suburb coverage, and 1010 Winds did more city coverage.
Correct. And the other thing was who had the biggest or more potent transmitter, and that was by far and away CBS. 1010 Winds has a directional signal. They're 50,000 watts, but they're directed more toward the east and northeast. So if you live in a place like where I am in Putnam Valley at night, you really can't hear the AM. That's why they actually added an FM station, 92.7, I believe. So you could hear 1010 Winds on the FM dial, and it comes a lot clearer than the AM. But CBS at night covers like 37 states. And so they figure, well, we're looking for some place now to put our new acquisition, ESPN Radio, which has been on 92.7. They're going to lose the 92.7 FM frequency at the end of this month. They said, well, how are we going to make up for that? Oh, let's put it on the very powerful and potent AM signal that 880 has. And they said,
Right.
well, what's going to happen to 880? Well, we'll get rid of them. And that's basically what has happened. That what probably went into the determination as to getting rid of CBS 880 as opposed to 1010 wins.
Right. And CBS TV is and CBS Radio are they're totally separate. One has absolutely nothing to do with the other. Viacom, the old Viacom, which then became National Amusements, is now and now that's being bought out. That part of the Paramount deal. So that's where the CBS network is, and the radio stations were sold by CBS a long time ago, and they've gone on. Like I said, they were owned by different companies, and now they wound up being owned by Odyssey. Well, by the way, just is just coming out of bankruptcy. That's another factor in all of this. So they're trying to pay down debt and everything else. So it's crazy. But anyway, I wanted to at least certainly talk about that tonight because it was such an important part of our personal lives. Uh,
And
that
Craig Allen, the people are saying, well, why can't Craig Allen go to 1010 wins? Well, the reason why Craig can't go to 1010 wins is 1010 wins has had a long term contract with AccuWeather. And so they are served by the AccuWeather people out of State College, Pennsylvania. Now, I guess it's possible that if it, for example, here in the Hudson Valley, Joe, on Saturday mornings on WHUD, whereas AccuWeather serves WHUD Monday through Sunday, on Saturday mornings only, Jim Witt does the forecast. He reads the AccuWeather forecast. It's not done by Jim, but at least you get a chance to hear Jim Witt. You hear Jim Witt's voice doing the weather. So he's become such a fixture at WHUD. So maybe, I'm just throwing this out. If perhaps Craig Allen can work a deal out, maybe he could read the AccuWeather forecast, not his forecast. Then he could still be heard in the New York area, at least on 1010 wins. But I don't think that's going to work because I know Craig, what Craig says and what Craig puts out on the air, he prefers it to be him, not anybody else.
all right.
And I know you probably feel the same way if you were doing the weather on a certain radio station as well. So
Oh yeah. All right. Let's move on, I guess, and talk about Tropical Storm Ernesto, which I have a lovely satellite picture of. Nice, good looking loop. And Ernesto, there's an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft there now. It seems to be strengthening a bit. Pressure's dropped a couple of millibars, and you can see the structure on the satellite continues to improve, continues to get better organized. You see a little bit of feathering there of some of the high cirrus on the outside, which is on the periphery, which is a sign that the system is organizing. Also, it's interacting a bit with the feeder bands that are coming up from South America. There's some mountain interaction going on with some of the islands. So this probably really won't get going until after it gets to the other side of Puerto Rico. Once it does that, and the impact of the interaction is lessened, this will probably become a hurricane in a hurry. And I do have the radar view here along with some of the latest weather observations in the surrounding islands. Most of the stronger winds are offshore. There's some heavy rains moving into St. Thomas and St. John. One of the stations on St. John there reporting 80 with a temperature of a dew point of 78. If you missed those dew points, here's a reminder. You know where to go. South wind at 16 miles an hour there. Actually, the wind barb here at the on the British Virgin Islands Tortola is southeast at 29, and they are seeing some heavy downpours there, and that feeder band goes all the way down into the Caribbean. Just a few showers at the moment over Puerto Rico as of 7:57 p.m. Eastern time. Humacchio is west northwest at 14. You have Roosevelt Roads Naval Station. They're north at 7. Not really showing a lot of wind here. Vieques Island is 20 mile north at 20, and the other station there is north northeast at 15. So really, not a whole lot happening on the west side of this thing at the moment. And I don't think this is, obviously, I don't. This is not going to really be a problem for the East Coast, other than getting waves kicked up. But I'm starting to think that, you know, I don't think you could rule out that Atlantic Canada might have a, might have a close call with this.
Yeah, and this is something that we have discussed here on Joe and Joe over the last year or two, how it seems like all of a sudden in the last few years, Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland have been a magnet for tropical systems. You know, everybody thinks about when they hear about a tropical storm, oh, is Puerto Rico going to get hit? Is the Caribbean? Is Florida or whatever? Nobody ever says, gee, I wonder if Nova Scotia or Newfoundland's going to get hit again. Well, I want to tell you, the last few years, they have had problems with tropical systems. This one, it looks like right now, it looks like this storm is going to pass close to, maybe not make a direct hit on either Nova Scotia or Newfoundland. Well, maybe Cape Race, which is sticking out in the Atlantic Ocean in southeastern Newfoundland Island, may get a brush by this. But once again, it looks like another tropical system is at least going to threaten those two zones up in Canada. And again, we're not even halfway through the hurricane season yet. The traditional peak is September 10th. And who knows, this may be a forebearer of more tropical problems or potential problems, again, for Atlantic Canada. And in the last few years, that has been the story, that they have been seeing at least one tropical system affect them adversely. This one looks like it's going to take a run at it, although I'd be more concerned with the people who live on the island of Bermuda. They look like they're right in the middle of the probability cone, Joe. And
Yeah,
then they
I
take a
was,
track just off to the south and east of Atlantic Canada, but still a little bit too close for comfort.
and yeah, they see what the Hurricane Center's doing, on their forecast here. They have it strengthening to a hurricane uh, sometime overnight when it gets on the other side of Puerto Rico, moving northwestward, then turning north, and then turning northeast, and then turning more north northeast. So by Sunday afternoon, it's somewhere east of Norfolk, Virginia, out in the Atlantic at just inside 65 degrees west. And from here, if we look at the tracking models, a couple of them uh, the ones that go out far enough, one gets close to the eastern part of Nova Scotia and then into southern portions of Newfoundland, and the other ones also get close to the southeast part of Newfoundland. So again, something we'll have to keep an eye on, and I'll take a look. Going to take a look at the icon. I think that's we'll start off with the icon. Look at a couple of these models. So the icon only goes out 120 hours. So if you look at the icon model, I mean the Hurricane Center forecast and the icon model match up pretty well. Very, very close to Bermuda. Of course, the icon gets it down into the 940s. I don't know how real that is. And then it's sort of moving almost straight north at one point. The 12Z goes out a little more, so we go out to 180 hours, then it turns northeastward, and it passes just offshore Nova Scotia and sort of clips southeastern Newfoundland. Now, the GFS today, we take a look at that, is actually a little bit further to the left on the 18Z run. Uh, it gets close to Bermuda, then goes north northwest for a short time, and then turns north and north northeast, and actually comes very close to the eastern part of Nova Scotia and moves right over eastern Newfoundland on this most recent run. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And one of the, and the key to all of this, when we look at the upper air, uh, this is, let me just back it up to tonight. So you have this deep trough that runs from south of Greenland southwestward into Virginia. And there's an upper low that is sitting between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland in the Bay of is that the Bay of Fundy? Or no, the
Um,
St. Lawrence, it's the Gulf of St. Lawrence. I'm sorry.
yeah,
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 Gulf of St. Lawrence. And that trough, it pulls out in stretches, almost like a piece of taffy. An upper low that's south of Greenland heads over toward Ireland and moves, actually passes south of Iceland and then on its way to the British Isles. A leftover upper low forms over Nova Scotia on Wednesday night and Thursday. So this draws it northward. This is why it's not going to be an East Coast problem, because it gets caught by this upper trough with this upper low that dives southeastward off Nova Scotia, and then it lifts it up. That upper low winds up going out. Now it responds to the next trough that's dropping into the eastern part of the United States. And of course, it's so far out that at that point, it's moving northward, but it's out basically out at about 65 degrees west. And it moves north and northeast, and you see gets kicked up right over eastern Nova Scotia and over Newfoundland. So uh, the upper air here is, obviously the driving force here is this trough that's sitting off the east coast the next couple of days, and how it reacts to that. And then if it didn't completely pick it up, it's going to be at the mercy of that second trough that drops into the eastern part of the United States, which, by the way, is what the long range back days ago was trying to make a deep trough at 90 and a deep trough at 85 degrees west. So you can see how that turned out.
right. And again, once you go beyond 4 or 5 days, um, you just have to roll the dice, so to speak, as to what may ultimately become the outcome. I do notice that, Joe, that after it passes Newfoundland or the vicinity of Newfoundland, it tries to hold together. At least some of the models try to hold that together all the way out until it goes across the big pond and arrives in the vicinity of the United Kingdom. So maybe
Right.
not really a hurricane or a tropical storm, but maybe a very potent coastal system, ocean storm for our friends across the big pond. Maybe latter part of next week. If it gets when it gets up to about Nova Scotia or Newfoundland, we're talking about Monday or Tuesday of next week, and then a couple more days to cross the ocean and get it within range of Western Europe, maybe by the end of next week.
Well, it's trough in the east, trough off the west coast, and a ridge inland of the west coast up the Rockies. And one trough pulls out, another one replaces that. The weekend trough is going to probably bring a chance for some showers and maybe a couple of thunderstorms at some point Saturday and Sunday, maybe even lingering into Monday, because that trough doesn't look like it can't get out of the way if there's a hurricane sitting south of Nova Scotia. So you have to sort of wait till that goes out, and then that trough can get out. And then another upper low dives down into eastern Canada. So if you're looking for heat and humidity, keep looking because it ain't coming, at least not for the time being. And that upper low drops out, lifts out, and then yet another one drops in the longer range into eastern Canada. So we're kind of in this sort of unusual place here in the month of August that if we keep getting these upper lows coming down and going into eastern Canada, uh, it keeps the very warm and the very humid weather down to a minimum, and then the rest of the time, it'll be reasonable.
It looks like that's going to be the case. I don't know, just thinking back of some atrociously hot summers, like the summer of '88, the summer of '99. Just to give a couple of examples, they were hot June, July into the early part of August, and then all of a sudden something flipped, and the rest of the summer of those two extremely hot summers, rest of the summer turned out to be not too bad. I mean, actually on the normal or even coolish side, maybe that's something you have to think in the back of your mind. If summer heat and humidity gets off to a fast start, that it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last the entire summer. That maybe when we get to August, we'll see some changes, and we certainly are seeing that now with this constant flow out of Canada, helping to defeat any kind of upper level ridge building over the eastern part of the country to help start another long term heat wave or long term wave of heat and humidity.
And speaking of humidity, dew points for the rest of this work week are in the 50s. Saturday, you finally see the dew points climbing up into the 60s and staying there until you get rid of the next trough goes by. And then once that happens, you start to get lower dew points. There's a nice push for later next week that comes down into New England and into the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. And then when that goes out, there's another push of pleasant dew points that comes in behind it. And who knows what happens beyond 2 weeks. But it does, as I said, at least it does look like the humid days are going to be kept to a minimum over the next couple of weeks while we're dealing with all of this. Meanwhile, across the U.S., we've got heat advisories in South Florida. We've got heat advisories in the central and western Gulf states, up into parts of the Mississippi Valley and the southern and into the plains. A little bit of excessive heat there in central Oklahoma. We've got a working severe thunderstorm watch in the northeastern quarter of Colorado, northwest Kansas, and southwest Nebraska tonight. But everywhere else, it's on the quiet side. And let's give this satellite loop a nice little refresh here. And you'll notice the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, the Northeast. It was, pretty much a really nice day. A little bit of moisture in the Carolinas. Nice here across Georgia. By the way, Joe, my high yesterday here was 80, and the morning low was 59. And this morning, the low was 62 and the high was 82. The weather here has been, the last several days, has been quite easy to take. So I'm happy about that.
I'm happy that you're happy. We had a low this morning here in Putnam Valley of 57. It was a nice, clear, coolish, comfortable night last night. We're anticipating probably something similar to that overnight tonight again. Incidentally, NOAA came up with an update to their 2024 hurricane season outlook on August the 8th, and they are now saying that the probability of above normal hurricane activity is above 90%. And they're saying that the number of named storms in their updated August outlook 17 to 24, 8 to 13 hurricanes, 4 to 7 major hurricanes. And that pretty much is the same outlook that they put out back in May. So they really haven't changed all that much from their May outlook to their August outlook, even though we're still waiting for an La Nina, which would help certainly to bolster hurricane frequency.
But you know what? We might not even need it, considering last year with the El Nino, that was the fourth most active season on record. Just the fact that it's neutral is probably going to be enough to boost those numbers up to the set 17 to 24.
Well, you're probably right, except for one thing that I note is that after we get our latest tropical headache out of the way, that there doesn't seem to be anything behind Ernesto. I mean, we may go more than a few days before we see a tropical wave or some sort of a system that appears in the formative stages of a tropical cyclone. So,
Yeah, well, so maybe that may be true. Some of the longer range stuff that I don't get to see, but you know, some of the people that I know, because I know so many people, uh, and they get to see all these secret maps that I don't get,
yeah,
mentioning the end of the month, something, perhaps in the Southwest Atlantic at the end of the month. I think it's off the European weeklies or something. So we'll see if that. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, here we are now. It's only August the 13th. We've had three hurricanes and one major. So so far, I don't know. Maybe Ernesto may wind up getting to be a major before this is all said and done. We'll see. But um, you there's I think we're going to be sitting here a month from now in September with several of them running around somewhere.
oh, I'm sure. And of course, you know the old rule on Labor Day: there's always at least one storm somewhere out there.
Somewhere,
Labor
yes.
Day.
A lot of lightning strikes tonight in the Rockies, and you see, and also back down into Arizona and New Mexico and points northward. That's where all the action seems to be. From the standpoint of the radar. Very quiet here in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. Other than these upper troughs that have been coming through, that yesterday there were some scattered showers around. Most people didn't see anything. Some people did. I mean, very, very cold. Believe it was temperatures at the surface were reasonable and seasonal, but it was actually rather cold aloft. So there was, we had some instability stuff going on. And you see all the showers and storms in New Mexico and particularly into northeastern Colorado. We've got a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings there, and also a couple back up in northern Utah. And some of these showers and storms extend all the way up into Montana. That's where the Storm Prediction Center has a marginal to slight risk. And you see the blue box is where we have the severe thunderstorm watch. Also, small area of marginal risk in South Carolina down to the coast. And tomorrow we have a slight risk. It's all in the plains, up from Missouri and Kansas northwestward up into the Dakotas. That comes with a 2% tornado risk. Oh, and by the way, speaking of which, uh, a New York State record, Joe, there have been 27 tornadoes so far this year in New York State, and that's the most ever. I saw that post somewhere.
Wow.
That's impressive.
And
And
we had Friday night. We had an EF0 tornado that touched down apparently near New Paltz. And there was somebody who actually took a video of it. I don't think the National Weather Service in Albany even sent anybody to investigate for damage or anything. They just they saw the video and they said, "Okay, that's an EF0," and automatically it became part of the Hudson Valley Annals as a tornado again near New Paltz on Friday night.
Thursday into Friday, the severe weather risk is in southern Wisconsin to Illinois and into Missouri. They have a slight risk there. They also have general thunderstorms indicated from northeastern Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey, north and east. I guess there's another one of these little weak upper troughs that's going by on Thursday, even with the low dew points, with the dry air at the surface. That old trough still hanging around makes for a somewhat unstable atmosphere, but it's one of those deals where, the vast majority of you are not really going to see anything. WPC 7-day rainfalls. Now, this comes for the weekend for the most part. And we're looking at inch and a half plus areas from northern New Jersey up the Hudson Valley into western New England, also in western Pennsylvania down into West Virginia. Inch and a half to 2.5 and 3 inch amounts in parts of Indiana, Illinois, and back through Missouri. Virginia south to Georgia and west across the Gulf states, a couple of patches here and there of a half-inch plus, but for the most part, I mean, convective activity here has been virtually non-existent the last 4 or 5 days. I mean, we got this stuff in the Carolinas, but the rest of the Gulf states really has been very quiet, and this is not typical of August. Usually there's all sorts of scattered pop-up showers and storms running around, but we're not seeing um, that this year. And as far as flash flooding is concerned, we've got a marginal to slight risk tonight in South Carolina. We've got a slight risk across Missouri and eastern Kansas, a slight risk in northeastern Colorado. Tomorrow, looking at where the severe weather is, the slight risk zone, also indicating a slight risk for flash flooding from northern Arkansas, northeast Arkansas, northwestward up into Iowa and southern Minnesota. And then for day 3, it's in Illinois, Indiana, and southeast Wisconsin, including Chicago and Milwaukee, but nothing to worry about here in the eastern part of the United States. So the weekend, because we got these weak upper troughs coming through, and the GFS sort of picks up on it. There's some scattered stuff Thursday afternoon in New England. You see the thunderstorms moving out of the northern plains and into the Great Lakes Thursday afternoon and Thursday night into Friday. Ernesto's on the lower right. That's going to sort of skim the edge of the screen here. And then Saturday, with a low over Lake Huron, you've got the trailing cold front with some showers and storms, and maybe again on Sunday with some showers and storms. I don't think it's a case where it's not going to rain every waking minute of Saturday and Sunday, but there will be shower risks on both weekend days.
I watch some of the local forecasters, and even now on a Tuesday, they're trying to assure everybody, oh, if you have any plans out of doors this weekend, don't cancel them because it's not going to be raining all the time. Yeah, I understand that, but especially I think on Sunday, we're going to be looking more often than not at not necessarily showers, but because the warm front is going to be to our south and west, and the cold front to our west, or occluded front, it's going to be more of a rain as opposed to a showery type of pattern, and certainly not really a good weekend. I mean, if you were hoping to go to the beach, for example, or have some kind of outdoor plans for an extended period, but yet they, even now on Tuesday, they're trying not to let anybody's hopes down by saying, "Don't worry about it. Don't cancel your plans yet." And maybe they'll change on that, by Thursday or Friday. But when you compare it to what we had today or yesterday, what we're going to have in the next couple of days, you get to the weekend, it'll be a downer because everybody on Saturday and especially Sunday will say, why couldn't we have the great weather we had on Tuesday or Wednesday of last week? Look at it, it's cloudy. I can't see much of the sun, and we had rain. There's going to be more rain later on. But what
I
can you say?
know. 8 o'clock advisory on Ernesto, by the way, is at 18.4, 64.7, which is 20 miles east of St. Thomas or 90 miles east of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Maximum sustained winds are 65 miles an hour, so they brought the wind up a notch. Moving west northwest or 300 degrees at 18 miles an hour, so it's slowed down from the 26 miles an hour it was moving at yesterday. And they're now carrying a pressure of 998 millibars. I think down from 1,001 on the 5 o'clock advisory, 29.47 inches. And by the way, if you're watching this overnight, obviously it's going to be dated here. It's 8:18 Eastern time right now. So the information you might want to go to nhc.noaa.gov to get the latest. But on this advisory, the government of France has discontinued the tropical storm warning for St. Martin and St. Bartholomew. The governments of Antigua, Barbuda discontinued the tropical storm warning for St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla. The government of St. Martin has discontinued the tropical storm warning for St. Martin. Um, the government of the Netherlands has discontinued the tropical storm warning for Saba and St. Eustatius Islands. So what we have left is a hurricane watch for the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, Vieques, and Culebra. A tropical storm warning in effect for the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Vieques, and Culebra. Okay, or Culebra. So that's the latest on Ernesto. And now we have Briller Jeopardy, Joe. We have Briller Jeopardy. And just let everybody know that Mother Briller is on the improve and may be home next week. Hooray, hooray. And I haven't heard from Johnny Quest. I know some of you on the chat board have been talking to Johnny Quest. I just hope everything is better with regards to his dad. He's been taking care of his dad, who's been very ill. So we wish him and we wish both of them the best and a speedy recovery to Johnny's dad. Okay, so average high temperatures now in the month of August, Joe. Month of August, we're starting off with Atlanta.
How about 87?
Well, that is a very good guess. It is. It's close too.
Okay.
And even closer is Vincent Croce and Mike Waterhouse. They are one is on 88 and the other one is 90, which means that Michael McGuire and Maggie P nail it at 89. 89 for Atlanta. Okay, Boston. The average high temperature for the month of August in Boston.
Let's try 80.
Would you ring the bell for yourself, Mr. Rayo?
Thank you very much. There we go.
All right, 80 it is for Boston. So that takes care of Boston. Let's now go to, I know you guys are throwing numbers out there, so just give me a second here. So I'm just gonna put the next city on the chat board. And that is Chicago. Chicago. Chicago.
I hear there's going to be a lot of hot air out there next week.
They may very well be. It may get very messy.
Yeah.
Um, Chicago, Joe.
Chicago, I will say 82.
Ooh, that's an
Ooh,
ooh. Yes. Mike Waterhouse and William Uber have got the answer this time at 83.
wow.
83, and a number of you said 82, and a couple of you have said 84. It's 83. Uh, Salad, Texas, as I like to call Dallas, Texas,
Well,
which is salad spelt backwards,
how
or
about 90,
salad.
94?
94 is just a bit too low, just ever so slightly.
Man, I'm
Um,
so happy I don't live in Dallas.
well,
Oh,
Rich Rothmansky is in Snake Country with 96. So is Vincent Croce. And
how about
let's
William
see.
95?
Oh, that's the wrong way of Snake Country. He's at the tail. Norm Roberts is at Snake Country on the other side at 98. So you know what that means.
97, I would think.
97, yes, 97 for Dallas. And of course, my favorite city because it really just screws me up almost every single time, and that is Denver, Colorado.
Damn, Denver.
Denver, Colorado.
Denver. How about 86?
Uh, no, but Patrick Darcy and Miss Fowlerite, Joe, it's News Radio 88, WCBS, New York, 88. Are you stunned to
Well,
silence?
is that it? 88? It was
88,
Oh, okay.
88. Otando.
I drive my just off subject here for a second. Whenever my wife asks me what time it is, I annoy her. You know what I always say when she asks, "What time is it now?" I'll look at my wristwatch and I'll say, "WCBS News Time, 8:24."
I used to do that too. Why is that annoying? I don't think that's annoying at all. I do that at the dog park sometimes. Somebody will ask me what time it is, and I'll say WCBS News Time is
It's gonna be
right.
they go away.
Fort, set your time to WCBS. Four tones will follow. The fourth and loudest one marks the exact time.
Dun, dun,
And
dun,
then,
dun.
then of course, it was the top of the hour, so it would be the network would come on with, it would be, this is CBS News. I'm Sister Charles Edwards.
One thing we're going to miss, it used to be for many, many years on the TV, and then we only heard it on the radio. But when at the top of the hour, I don't know how you describe it. It's like, it's 8 o'clock. Boom. I
Yeah.
don't describe that sound, but
I just the fact that it's not going to be there, that just blows my mind.
it does.
And it really does. It was so much, and it was automatic. And the car in the old days when you'd set your car radio and you had the buttons and you had to set the station to the button you want. So what I had, among others, I had News Radio 88 on the AM side. I had 88 and I had 1010 wins
Yep.
and various other ones on the buttons. But those were the two. So you would, of course, if you were a weather freak, you were flipping back and forth between the two to see what the forecasts were. But yeah, I mean, it was just such a part of everybody's life. And then working in the New York market for as long as you and I both did, um, we we were surrounded by by it every single day.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. So another icon, oh, another piece of history going by. God knows where we're going to be 5 years from now.
Well, maybe 5 years. And if we're not here 5 years, at least hopefully somebody out there will say, "Remember Joe and Joe? Remember those two guys used to talk about the weather?"
No, I know, but we don't want to think. We shouldn't think in those terms because, after all, you and I both know how we are both attached to each other at the hip. Whatever happens to you happens to me. Whatever happens to me then happens to you.
Oh,
Uh,
it's funny. I mean, yesterday when we both got the news, you sent me something via messenger,
at the same time, you were sending me something,
something,
and they crossed.
right, exactly,
I
exactly.
literally hit send. Literally hit the enter key, and it popped up on the screen. And like a nanosecond later, your message popped up.
Yep. Joined at the hip. Dennis Cassia mentions, don't forget our Stellafane friend, Walt Wheeler. Walt Wheeler, who used to attend Stellafane for many years in the 70s and 80s, who had a deep, resonant voice, was one of the newscasters on News Radio
Yes,
88
he
back in
was.
the day. And Walt, again, was also a very highly regarded amateur astronomer. And Dennis and I, we used to see him every year back in the 70s and 80s. He's no longer with us. But yeah, that's another. Ah, Joe, all these people, all these names, Douglas Edwards and, Harvey Hoffman
Hmm.
and Palmer Payne.
Right. I'm Lou Adler, and I'm Jim Donnelly.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was Pat Parson and Ben Farnsworth, who apparently couldn't stand each other.
Exactly. Yeah, Jim Jensen was on CBS TV, Stan the Man, not on radio. So,
Correct. All
so
right.
anyway,
So
are we done? Or
I think we're done. There's not much more. We've covered it all, Joe. We've covered everything.
yes,
So the Joe and Joe Weather Show, as it is every night, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat, to the description of this podcast. Use the coupon code,
which is summer 2024.
and if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off.
And John Sachs 77, thank you, because I was trying to remember Bridget Quinn's name this afternoon, because when Lou Adler retired, she took his place, and uh, Jim Donnelly and Bridget Quinn. And I could not for the life of me remember her name. Thank you. How I
And I
feel
remember
better.
Bridget Quinn was on Walk, WALK radio out on Long Island before she made the big move to New York radio. And back then, when she was on Walk, it's like, Joe, when I used to listen to her, it was like what Billy Joel would say in the Piano Man song, says, "Man, what are you doing here?" I said to myself, "Man, Bridget, quit. What the heck are you doing at Walk? You should be on a New York station." And sure enough, sometime later, she made it to New York.
Awesome. All right. We are going to say goodnight just to get a heads up. Thursday probably will be a late start. We'll let you know tomorrow night how late. Okay. But tomorrow we're at our regular time, which is 7:35 p.m. Eastern. Night, night.
Joe, one last thing.
Yes.
Next week, Stephen Colbert is going to do all of his shows live, not on tape at 11:35. You
Right.
know, he actually draws the whole studio, the whole theater is filled to the rafters, even though it's 11:35 at night, and he's doing it live. I wonder what would happen if we did something like that. I wonder if, like, just for one night, not for a consecutive number of nights or whatever. But I mean, I wonder if we said we're going to be meeting at some crazy hour of the night. And I wonder if we could draw anybody, just to come and listen and watch.
At what time?
Well, like I said, Colbert's on every night at 11:35, but
Right.
he pre-tapes that show at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But next week for the Democratic convention, he's going to go live at 11:35. I guess from the Ed Sullivan Theater, and he did that for the Republican convention, and it's a full house. It's like the whole theater is filled with people at that late hour. And I'm
Yeah.
saying, I wonder if we could get a comparable number of people to watch us.
I wonder if you could get me to do it. 'Cause I don't know that I would to be up at that hour. I mean,
How
I
about
could tell you. I
a
mean,
week from, how
yesterday,
about
dry.
a week from this Thursday, Joe and Joe at 2 a.m. East.
No, not happening. Just not happening, Joe.
I'm just curious to see if anybody would be silly enough to tune us in at that hour. And if nobody was there, we'd say, "Well, nobody's here. Good night, all," and that's it.
And I'll leave it with this. Officials in Washington shipped 5,000 pounds of marijuana into Puget Sound on a barge and set it on fire. No turn was left unstoned. This is
Oh,
Neil Cheyette looking at the law.
good night, everybody.